Alright, you guys ready for Mistborn?
Yeah.
Yeah, can I read the whole book right now?
No. So first I'm going to do the back, and then we'll get straight into the prologue. So the back of the book says, "The mists rule the night. The Lord Ruler owns the world. Once a hero arose to save the world. He failed. Ever since, the world has been a wasteland of ash and mist, controlled by the immortal emperor known as the Lord Ruler. But hope survives. A new uprising is forming, one built around the ultimate caper, the cunning of a brilliant criminal mastermind, and the determination of an unlikely heroine, a street urchin who must learn to master the power of a Mistborn."
Tell me that wasn't all of it. What?
That was the back of the book, not the prologue.
Oh, okay.
I said the back of the book I was doing first, and then I'm going to do the prologue. So, yeah. So in Mistborn, which is also a thing in Stormlight Archive, so with his main series books, every chapter starts with an epigraph. So basically, like a little snippet of something, and you don't know what it is generally till later in the book, what it's from. So first, the epigraph at the start of the prologue says, "Sometimes I worry that I'm not the hero everyone thinks I am. The philosophers assure me that this is the time, that the signs have been met, but I still wonder if they have the wrong man. So many people depend on me. They say I will hold the future of the entire world on my arms. What would they think if they knew that their champion, the hero of ages, their savior, doubted himself? Perhaps they wouldn't be shocked at all. In a way, this is what worries me most. Maybe in their hearts they would, or they wonder, just as I do. When they see me, do they see a liar?" So yeah, that is the epigraph at the start there. Did you have any thoughts about the epigraph before I go into that proper prologue?
I didn't know Sanderson knew you. When they see me, they see a liar.
Oh, wow.
Sanderson knew you.
That's fucking rude.
And you keep lying to us.
What do you think, Darkness?
There's a lot of
What
therapy
time
that needs to happen
What,
in
between-
every fucking book we've read.
Oh yeah, no, in
yeah,
every
oh.
book there's a ton of therapy that needs to happen. Trust me, that's a theme. There's lots of therapy that everyone
Wait.
needs.
Is there going to be a dad that we can hate in this one too?
Probably.
Oh, okay.
Oh my
Oh, well,
god!
there's definitely dads you hate. These are there's the worst dad I think in this book.
In this specific book or the Mistborn series?
In the Mistborn series, but in this specific book he's in it too.
Okay.
Literally the
I
worst
bet.
dad ever.
Here's gonna be my challenge. I'm gonna try my hardest to like this dad.
But is this the okay? I feel like
It's
he
the
would be-
worst dad. I wanna like them.
Oh, okay.
Oh god, just knowing what I do about him. I don't know if you're gonna want to say that later.
I probably won't, knowing that we just witnessed somebody fucking get like cut up in half.
Anyways, prologue. Ash fell from the sky. Lord Tresting frowned, glancing up at the ruddy midday sky as his servants scuttled forward, opening a parasol over Tresting and his distinguished guest. Ashfalls weren't that uncommon in the Final Empire, but Tresting had hoped to avoid getting soot stains on his fine new suit coat and red vest, which had just arrived via canal boat from Luthadel. Fortunately, there wasn't much wind. The parasol would likely be effective. Tresting stood with his guest on a small hilltop patio that overlooked the fields. Hundreds of people in brown smocks worked in the falling ash, caring for the crops. There was a sluggishness to their efforts, but of course that was the way of the Ska. The peasants were an indolent, unproductive lot. They didn't complain, they knew better than that. Instead, they simply worked with bowed heads, moving about their work with quiet apathy. The passing whip of a taskmaster would force them into dedicated motion for a few moments, but as soon as the taskmaster moved on, they would return to their languor. Tresting turned to the man standing beside him on the hill. One would think, Tresting noted, that 1,000 years of working in fields would have bred them to be a little more effective at it. The obligator turned, raising an eyebrow, the motion done as if to highlight his most distinctive feature, the intricate tattoos that laced the skin around his eyes. The tattoos were enormous, reaching all the way across his brows and up the sides of his nose. This was a full Prelan, a very important obligator indeed. Tresting had his own personal obligators back at the manor, but they were only minor functionaries, with barely a few marks around their eyes. This man had arrived from Luthadel, with the same canal boat that had brought Tresting's new suit. "You should see City Ska Tresting," the obligator said, turning back to watch the Ska workers. "These are actually quite diligent compared to those inside Luthadel. You have more direct control over your Ska here. How many would you say you lose a month?" "Oh, a half dozen or so," Tresting said. "Some to beatings, some to exhaustion." "Runaways?" "Never," Tresting said. "When I first inherited this land from my father, I had a few runaways, but I executed their families. The rest quickly lost heart. I've never understood men who have trouble with their ska. I find the creatures easy to control if you show a properly firm hand. The obligator nodded, standing quietly in his gray robes. He seemed pleased, which was a good thing. The ska weren't actually Trusting's property. Like all ska, they belonged to the Lord Ruler. Trusting only leased the workers from his god, much in the same way he paid for the services of his obligators. The obligator looked down, checking his pocket watch, then glanced up at the sun. Despite the ashfall, the sun was bright this day, shining a brilliant crimson red behind the smoky blackness of the upper sky. Trusting removed a handkerchief and wiped his brow, thankful for the parasol's shade against the midday heat. Very well, Trusting, the obligator said. I will carry your proposal to Lord Venture as requested. He will have a favorable report from me on your operations here. Trusting held in a sigh of relief. An obligator was required to witness any contract or business deal between noblemen. True, even a lowly obligator like the ones Trusting had engaged could serve as such a witness, but it meant so much more to impress Staff Venture's own obligator. The obligator soon turned towards him. I will leave down the canal this afternoon. So soon? Trusting asked. Wouldn't you care to stay for supper? No, the obligator replied, though there is another matter I wish to discuss with you. I came not only at the behest of Lord Venture, but to look in on some matters for the Canton of Inquisition. Rumors say that you like to dally with your ska women. Trusting felt a chill. The obligator smiled. He likely meant for it to be disarming, but Trusting only found it eerie. Don't worry yourself, Trusting, the obligator said. If there had been any real worries about your actions, a steel inquisitor would have been sent here in my place. Trusting nodded slowly. Inquisitor. He had never seen one of the inhuman creatures, but he had heard stories. I have been satisfied regarding your actions with the ska women, the obligator said, looking back over the fields. What I've seen and heard here indicate that you always clean up your messes. A man such as you, efficient, productive, could go far in Luthadel. A few more years of work, some inspired mercantile deals, and who knows? The obligator turned away, and Trusting found himself smiling. It wasn't a promise or even an endorsement. For the most part, obligators were more bureaucrats and witnesses than they were priests. But to hear such praise from one of the Lord Ruler's own servants, Trusting knew that even nobility regarded the obligators as unsettling. Some even considered them a bother. But at the moment, Trusting could have kissed his distinguished guest. Trusting turned back to the ska, who worked quietly beneath the bloody sun and the lazy flakes of ash. Trusting had always been a country nobleman, living on his plantation, dreaming of perhaps moving to Luthadel itself. He had heard of the balls and the parties, the glamour and the intrigue, and it excited him to no end. I'll have to celebrate tonight, he thought. There was that young girl in the 14th hovel that he'd been watching for some time. He smiled again. A few more years of work, the obligator said, but could Trusting perhaps speed that up if he worked a little harder? His ska population had been growing lately. Perhaps if he pushed them a bit more, he could bring in an extra harvest this summer and fulfill his contract with Lord Venture in extra measure. Trusting nodded as he watched the crowd of lazy ska, some working with their hoes, others on hands and knees, pushing the ash away from the fledgling crops. They didn't complain, they didn't hope, they barely dared to think. That was the way it should be, for they were ska. They were... Trusting froze as one of the ska looked up. The man met Trusting's eyes, a spark, no, a fire, of defiance showing in his expression. Trusting had never seen anything like it, not in the face of a ska. Trusting stepped backward reflexively, a chill running through him, as the strange, straight-backed ska held his eyes, and smiled. Trusting looked away. Curdan, he snapped. The burly taskmaster rushed up the incline. Yes, my lord. Trusting turned, pointing at... He frowned. Where had the ska been standing? Working with their heads bowed, bodies stained by soot and sweat, they were so hard to tell apart. Trusting paused, searching. He thought he knew the place, an empty spot where nobody now stood. But no, that couldn't be it. The man couldn't have disappeared from the group so quickly. Where would he have gone? He must be in there somewhere, working with his head now properly bowed. Still, his moment of apparent defiance was inexcusable. My lord? Curdan asked again. The obligator stood at the side, watching curiously. It would not be wise to let the man know that one of the ska had acted so brazenly. Work the ska in that southern section a little harder, Trusting ordered, pointing. I see them being sluggish, even for ska. Beat a few of them. Curdan shrugged but nodded. Wasn't much of a reason for a beating, but then he didn't need much of a reason to give the workers a beating. They were, after all, only ska. So there's still more, but what are you guys thinking of that so far?
Already sounds more interesting.
You say Elantris was more interesting?
I said it already sounds more interesting. Oh. Also, have you seen any of the memes I put in here?
I've not been looking because I've been focused on reading, but I've been seeing them scroll past. Like, I've been seeing them out of the corner of my eye. What did you think so far, Darkness, of Trusting beating his ska?
I don't know. There's a lot that I don't know, so I'm just like...
Yeah. Considering I'm reading this aloud, I probably will suggest that you guys properly read the prologue again, along with the other chapters.
There's stuff that I'm not getting there, so I'm just like, okay.
Alright.
I get the idea though, so I'm just.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask questions real because it's interesting.
Is
Uh,
is like there a way to name any of the like characters or anything that we're gonna be seeing?
Trusting is not a main character. This is just kind of setting so far. We're actually about to switch to a character that will be an actual character in the main
Oh,
part
it's
of the
still
book.
going.
Yeah, no, I just paused because we're switching characters.
Okay.
Yeah, we're only a third of the way through the prologue. It's
I'm
15
assuming
pages.
one of the main characters. I don't know if it's one of the main characters, but like you know that one that was like showing defiance or whatever.
Yes, that is who we're switching
assuming...
to.
Okay, good. That's interesting. There we go.
Yes. Kelsier had heard stories. He had heard whispers of times when once, long ago, the sun had not been red. Times when the sky hadn't been clogged by smoke and ash. When plants hadn't struggled to grow, and when ska hadn't been slaves. Times before the Lord Ruler. However, those days were nearly forgotten. Even the legends were growing vague. Kelsier watched the sun, his eyes following the giant red disk as it crept toward the western horizon. He stood quietly for a long moment, alone in the empty fields. The day's work was done, the ska had been herded back to their hovels. Soon the mists would come. Eventually, Kelsier sighed, then turned to pick his way across the furrows and pathways, weaving between large heaps of ash. He avoided stepping on the plants, though he wasn't sure why he bothered. The crops hardly seemed worth the effort. Wan, with wilted brown leaves, the plants seemed as depressed as the people who tended them. Ska hovels loomed in the waning light. Already, Kelsier could see the mists beginning to form, clouding the air and giving the mound-like buildings a surreal and tangible look. The hovel stood unguarded. There was no need for watchers, for no ska would venture outside once night arrived. Their fear of the mists was far too strong. I'll have to cure that of them some day, Kelsier thought as he approached one of the larger buildings. But all things in their own time. He pulled open the door and slipped inside. Conversation stopped immediately. Kelsier closed the door, then turned with a smile to confront the room of about 30 ska. A fire pit burned weakly at the center, and the large cauldron beside it was filled with vegetable-dappled water, the beginnings of an evening meal. The soup would be bland, of course. Still, the smell was enticing. "Good evening, everyone," Kelsier said with a smile, resting his pack beside his feet and leaning against the door. "How is your day?" His words broke the silence, and the women returned to their dinner preparations. A group of men sitting at a crude table continued to regard Kelsier with dissatisfied expressions. "Our day was filled with work, traveler," said Tepper, one of the ska elders. "Something you managed to avoid." "Field work hasn't ever really suited me," Kelsier said. "It's far too hard on my delicate skin." He smiled, holding up hands and arms that were lined with layers and layers of thin scars. They covered his skin, running lengthwise, as if some beast had repeatedly raked its claws up and down his arms. Pepper snorted. He was young to be an elder, probably barely into his 40s. At most, he might be 5 years Kelsier's senior. However, the scrawny man held himself with the air of one who liked to be in charge. "This is no time for levity," Tepper said sternly. "When we harbor a traveler, we expect him to behave himself and avoid suspicion. When you ducked away from the fields this morning, you could have earned a whipping for the men around you." "True," Kelsier said, "but those men could also have been whipped for standing in the wrong place, for pausing too long, or for coughing when a taskmaster walked by. I once saw a man beaten because his master claimed he had blinked inappropriately." Tipper sat with narrow eyes and a stiff posture, his arm resting on the table. His expression was unyielding. Kelsier sighed, rolling his eyes. "Fine, if you want me to go, I'll be off then." He slung his pack up on his shoulder and nonchalantly pulled open the door. Thick mist immediately began to pour through the portal, drifting lazily across Kelsier's body, pooling on the floor and creeping across the dirt like a hesitant animal. Several people gasped in horror, though most of them were too stunned to make a sound. Kelsier stood for a moment, staring out into the dark mists, their shifting currents lit feebly by the cooking pit's coals. "Close the door," Tepper's words were a plea, not a command. Kelsier did as requested, pushing the door closed and stemming the flood of white mist. "The mist is not what you think. You fear it far too much." "Men who venture into the mist lose their souls," a woman whispered. Her words raised a question. Had Kelsier walked into the mists? What, then, had happened to his soul? If only you knew, Kelsier thought. Well, I guess this means I'm staying. He waved for a boy to bring him a stool. It's a good thing, too. It would have been a shame for me to leave before I shared my news. More than one person perked up at the comment. This was the real reason they tolerated him. The reason the timid peasants would harbor a man such as Kelsier, a ska who defied the Lord Ruler's will by traveling from plantation to plantation. A renegade he might be, a danger to the entire community, but he brought news from the outside world. "I come from the north," Kelsier said, "from lands where the Lord Ruler's touch is less noticeable." He spoke in a clear voice, and people leaned unconsciously toward him as they worked. On the next day, Kelsier's words would be repeated to several hundred people who lived in the other hovels. The ska might be subservient, but they were incurable gossips. "Local lords rule in the west," Kelsier said, "and they are far from the iron grip of the Lord Ruler and his obligators. Some of these distant noblemen are finding that happy ska make better workers than mistreated ska. One man, Lord Renoir, has ordered his taskmasters to stop unauthorized beatings. There are whispers that he's considering paying wages to his plantation ska, like city craftsmen might earn. Nonsense, Tepper says. My apologies, Kelsier said. I didn't realize that Goodman Tepper had been to Lord Renoir's estates recently. When you dined with him last, did he tell you something that he did not tell me? Tepper's face reddened. Ska did not travel, and they certainly didn't dine with lords. You think me a fool, traveler, Tepper said, but I know what you're doing. You're the one they call the survivor. Those scars on your arms give you away. You're a troublemaker. You travel the plantation stirring up discontent. You eat our food, telling your grand stories and your lies. Then you disappear and leave people like me to deal with the false hopes you give our children. Kelsier raised an eyebrow. Now, good man Tepper, he said, your worries are completely unfounded. Why, I have no intention of eating your food. I brought my own. With that, Kelsier reached over and tossed his pack onto the earth before Tepper's table. The loose bag slumped to the side, dumping an array of foods to the ground. Fine breads, fruits, and even a few thick, cured sausages bounced free. A summer fruit rolled across the packed earthen floor and bumped slightly against Tepper's foot. The middle-aged ska regarded the fruit with stunned eyes. That's nobleman's food! Kelsier snorted. Barely. You know, for a man of renowned prestige and rank, your Lord Trusting has remarkably poor taste. His pantry is an embarrassment to his noble station. Tepper paled. That's where you went this afternoon, he whispered. You went to the manor. You stole from the master. Indeed, Kelsier said, and might I add that while your lord's taste in food is deplorable, his eye for soldiers is far more impressive. Sneaking into his manor during the day was quite a challenge. Tepper was still staring at the bag of food. If the taskmaster finds this here, well, I suggest you make it disappear then, Kelsier said. I'd be willing to bet that it tastes a fair bit better than watered-down farlet soup. 24 sets of hungry eyes studied the food. If Tepper intended further arguments, he didn't make them quickly enough, for his silent pause was taken as agreement. Within a few minutes the bag's contents had been inspected and distributed, and the pot of soup sat bubbling and ignored as the ska feasted on a meal far more exotic. Kelsier settled back, leaning against the hovel's wooden wall and watching the people devour their food. He had spoken correctly. The pantry's offerings had been depressingly mundane. But this was a people who had been fed on nothing but soup and gruel since they were children. To them, breads and fruits were rare delicacies, usually eaten only as aging discards brought down by the house servants. Your storytelling was cut short, young man, an elderly ska noted, hobbling over to sit on a stool beside Kelsier. Oh, I suspect there will be time for more later, Kelsier said, once all evidence of my thievery has been properly devoured. Don't you want any of it? No need, the old man said. The last time I tried Lord's food, I had stomach pains for 3 days. New tastes are like new ideas, young man. The older you get, the more difficult they are for your stomach. Kelsier paused. The old man was hardly an imposing sight. His leathered skin and bald scalp made him look more frail than they did wise. Yet he had to be stronger than he looked, for few plantation ska lived to such ages. Many lords didn't allow the elderly to remain home from daily work, and the frequent beatings that made up a ska's life took a terrible toll on the elderly. What was your name again? Kelsier asked. Menace. Kelsier glanced back at Tepper. So, Goodman Menace, tell me something. Why do you let him lead? Menace shrugged. When you get to be my age, you have to be very careful where you waste your energy. Some battles simply aren't worth fighting. There was an implication in Menace's eyes. He was referring to things greater than his own struggle with Tepper. You're satisfied with this then? Kelsier asked, nodding toward the hovel and its half-starved, overworked occupants. You're content with a life full of beatings and endless drudgery? At least it's a life, Menace said. I know what wages malcontent and rebellion bring. The eye of the Lord Ruler and the ire of the Steel Ministry can be far more terrible than a few whippings. Men like you preach change, but I wonder, is this a battle we can really fight? You're fighting it already, Goodman Menace. You're just losing horribly. Kelsier shrugged. But what do I know? I'm no more than a traveling miscreant, here to eat your food and impress your youths. Menace shook his head. You jest, but Tepper might have been right. I fear your visit will bring us grief. Kelsier smiled. That's why I didn't contradict him, at least not on the troublemaker point. He paused and smiled more broadly. In fact, I'd say calling me a troublemaker is probably the only accurate thing Tepper had said since I got here. We'll stop there for a moment again. What are you guys thinking so far of Kelsier?
Whoever this man is who steals shit, fucking cool. Fuck him. He's gonna be the best fucking character in this entire book.
Yes, I like him so far.
You like him so far? The survivor?
Before we continue.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no.
The last picture I just sent, that's fucking awesome. I love those books. The color of those
I think those
books
are the
shit.
British versions of the books.
Oh my god, that is such a beauty. Like, I would love to have that on a bookshelf. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I take it
Also,
back.
But,
I don't like him.
You don't like Kelsier?
Okay.
Yeah, because if I like him, he's gonna die.
Darkness is going to specifically try to hate Kelsier so he doesn't die.
I'm gonna like whatever dead we find him.
I mean, he is called the
Yeah,
Survivor.
yeah.
He's good at surviving.
Yeah. Also, because I was looking at all these other characters, but you say Hoyd is in a whole bunch of these books. So could you give me a picture of Hoyd in like either one of these books?
Yeah, 1 second.
He looks dope.
Yeah, he does. He looks really cool.
All right. So let's continue the prologue. Where was I? How do you do that? Menace asked, frowning. What? Smile so much. Oh, I'm just a happy person. Menace glanced down at Kelsier's hands. You know, I've only seen scars like those on one other person, and he was dead. His body was returned to Lord Tresting as proof that his punishment had been carried out. Menace looked up at Kelsier. He'd been caught speaking of rebellion. Tresting sent him to the pits of Hassan, where he worked until he died. The lad lasted less than a month. Kelsier glanced down at his hands and forearms. They still burned sometimes, though he was certain the pain was only in his mind. He looked up at Menace and smiled. You ask why I smile, goodman Menace. Well, the Lord Ruler thinks he has claimed laughter and joy for himself. I'm disinclined to let him do so. This is one battle that doesn't take much effort to fight. Menace stared at Kelsier, and for a moment Kelsier thought the old man might smile in return. But eventually Menace shook his head. I don't know. I just don't... The scream cut him off. It came from outside, perhaps to the north, though the mist distorted sound. The people in the hovel fell silent, listening to the faint, high-pitched yells. Despite the distance and the mist, Kelsier could hear the pain contained in those screams. Kelsier burned tin. It was simple for him now, after years of practice. The tin sat with other elementic metals within his stomach, swallowed earlier, waiting for him to draw upon them. He reached inside with his mind and touched the tin, tapping powers he still barely understood. The tin flared to life within him, burning his stomach like the sensation of a hot drink swallowed too quickly. Elementic power surged through his body, enhancing his senses. The room around him began crisp, the dull fire pit flaring to near blinding brightness. He could feel the grain in the wood of the stool beneath him. He could still taste the remnants of the loaf of bread he'd snacked on earlier. Most importantly, he could hear the screams with supernatural ears. Two separate people were yelling. One was an older woman, the other a younger woman, perhaps a child. The younger screams were getting farther and farther away. Poor Jess, a nearby woman said, her voice booming in Kelsier's enhanced ears. That child of hers was a curse. It's better for Ska not to have pretty daughters. Pepper nodded. Lord Tresting was sure to send for the girl sooner or later. We all knew it. Jess knew it. Still a shame, though, another man said. The screams continued in the distance. Burning tin, Kelsier was able to judge the direction accurately. Her voice was moving toward the Lord's manor. The sound set something off within him, and he felt his face flush with anger. Kelsier turned. Does Lord Tresting ever return the girls after he's finished with them? Old Menace shook his head. Lord Tresting is a law-abiding nobleman. He has the girls killed after a few weeks. He doesn't want to catch the eye of the Inquisitors. That was the Lord Ruler's command. He couldn't afford to have half-breed children running around. Children who might possess powers that Ska weren't supposed to know existed. The screams waned, but Kelsier's anger only built. The yells reminded him of other screams, a woman's screams from the past. He stood abruptly, stool toppling to the ground behind him. Careful, lad, Menace said apprehensively. Remember what I said about wasting energy. You'll never raise that rebellion of yours if you get yourself killed tonight. Kelsier glanced toward the old man. Then, through the screams of the pain, he forced himself to smile. I'm not here to lead a rebellion among you, goodman Menace. I just want to stir up a little trouble. What good could that do? Kelsier's smile broadened. New days are coming. Survive a little longer, and you might see great happenings in the final empire. I bid you all thanks for your hospitality. With that, he pulled open the door and strode out into the mist. So there's still a couple more pages, but what do you think about the whole he burned tin and allomantic powers?
Wait, so that's the magic of this world?
Allomancy is the power, yes.
Uh-huh. So, real quick, because it said it was in his stomach, though.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like, because all right, it just confuses me because it says he touched it and it's in his stomach. So, is it like protruding from his skin?
It says the tin sat with other allomantic metals within his stomach, swallowed earlier, waiting for him to draw upon them. He reached inside with his mind and touched the tin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Any thoughts, Darkness?
I think it's pretty cool.
They eat metal.
Is it just metal?
I don't know. You'll have to find out.
So I'm assuming it's not just metal. But okay.
So Menace lay awake in the early...
Wait 1 second. What is... Man.
You're cutting out.
God.
Oh, your microphone's all fucked up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So allomantic, right? That's the type of allomancy.
Yeah.
So I want to say it is only metal because allomancy just seems like it would be all types of metal. So like, there's a lot of metal, a lot of different types of metals.
Yeah,
I'm,
but
I'm gonna go on. I'm gonna go on the fact that all of them it has to be metal. I don't think they could probably drill magic from like wood or
maybe
anything. But
maybe for that specific one, yes. But I was thinking along the lines of the last book where there are different
well,
types of magic in that
yeah.
world.
In different worlds, yeah. But I'm
No,
saying,
in that specific world, there was different like types,
oh,
right?
well, I
So
mean,
I'm
yeah,
thinking
but
like they're showcasing one right now, and either it's the most known and like the ones they think like is only there, and they'll showcase like one that's like not well known. You know what I mean?
mhm. But what would they call it? I don't know.
Like there's names for so many types of magics and just like abilities. So
Yeah, but I mean, like allomantic makes sense if it was only like alloy. It would
yeah,
make sense.
but
Metal. So what would you call it? Timbermantic?
for what?
Lumber, like wood.
There should be a. I'm pretty sure there's names for that already. It's not that hard to think of like just basic elements for specific things and how it would be generated into a power.
Also, any thoughts about the fact that apparently Lord Trusting likes to take the pretty ska women and then have them killed because you can't have
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
incomplete
I
children?
love
It's great, right?
what if it's
is this the dad we're supposed to hate?
no? I was
No.
thinking, what if the power is less like it's less wanting and more like alchemy based? You know what I mean?
I get it, but I don't know. I just trying to break down a word of allomancy, alloyed, and like mancy, which mancy is like the spellcraft of it, like necromancy, all that stuff, dunamancy, shit like that. Mancy is pretty much like the spell casting of it. So
Yes.
the spell casting of alloy. Alloys are metal or metallic based.
You do realize that there's so many like already
Yes. So that's
existing
what I'm saying.
power things for
Well,
that. Yeah.
but what I'm saying is if allomancy is the main magic, there might be other ones, okay, but if it's the main magic, I think allomancy by itself can only use metal. There might be
Yeah.
something like I said, could
Hmm.
be like timbermancy. I'm only coming up with a really quick name, okay? But
Hmm.
like something else, but it's going to be called something else, like to use
That's what I
wood
was saying.
as a thing. Yeah. But then you could, but when I said that, you were like, no, and I'm like, isn't that what you just said?
You were discussing what would it be called.
Yeah. What would it be called?
I was
Timbermancy?
discuss- I don't know. I genuinely don't know. There's so many fucking different names already out there.
Woodmancy?
All right, let's finish
And if
this.
it's not
Lumbermancy?
if it's not well known, then I doubt they're gonna have a name for it.
All right, let's finish this
We'll see.
prologue.
Okay.
Menace lay awake in the early hours of the morning. It seemed that the older he became, the more difficult it was for him to sleep. This was particularly true when he was troubled about something, such as the traveler's failure to return to the hovel. Menace hoped that Kelsier had come to his senses and decided to move on. However, that prospect seemed unlikely. Menace had seen the fire in Kelsier's eyes. It seemed such a shame that a man who survived the pits would instead find death here, on a random plantation, trying to protect a girl everyone else had given up for dead. How would Lord Trusting react? He was said to be quite harsh with anyone who interrupted his nighttime enjoyments. If Kelsier had managed to disturb the master's pleasures, Trusting might easily decide to punish the rest of his ska by association. Eventually the other ska began to awake. Menace lay on the hard earth, bones aching, back complaining, muscles exhausted, trying to decide if it was worth rising. Each day he nearly gave up. Each day it was a little harder. Some day he would simply stay in the hovel, waiting until the taskmasters came to kill those who were too sick or too elderly to work. But not today. He could see too much fear in the eyes of the ska. They knew that Kelsier's nighttime activities would bring trouble. They needed Menace. They looked to him. He needed to get up. And so he did. Once he started moving, the pains of age decreased slightly, and he was able to shuffle out of the hovel towards the fields, leaning on a younger man for support. It was then he caught a scent in the air. "What's that?" he asked. "Do you smell smoke?" Shum, the lad upon whom Menace leaned, sniffed the air. The last remnants of the night's mist had burned away, and the red sun was rising behind the sky's usual haze of blackish clouds. "I always smell smoke lately," Shum said. "The ash mounts are violent this year." "No," Menace said, feeling increasingly apprehensive. "This is different." He turned to the north, toward where a group of ska were gathering. He let go of Shum, shuffling toward the group, feet kicking up dust and ash as he moved. At the center of the group of people he found Jess, her daughter, the one they all assumed had been taken by Lord Trusting, stood beside her. The young girl's eyes were red from lack of sleep, but she appeared unharmed. "She came back not long after they took her," the woman was explaining. "She came and pounded on the door, crying in the mist. Glenn was sure it was a Mist Wraith impersonating her. But I had to let her in. I don't care what he says, I'm not giving her up. I brought her out into the sunlight, and she didn't disappear. That proves she's not a Mist Wraith. Menace stumbled back from the growing crowd. Did none of them see it? No taskmasters came to break up the group. No soldiers came to make the morning population counts. Something was very wrong. Menace continued to the north, moving frantically toward the manor house. By the time he arrived, others had noticed the twisting line of smoke that was barely visible in the morning light. Menace wasn't the first to arrive at the edge of the short hilltop plateau, but the group made way for him when he did. The manor house was gone. Only a blackened, smoldering scar remained. By the Lord Ruler, Menace whispered. What happened here? He killed them all. Menace turned. The speaker was Jess's girl. She stood looking down at the fallen house, a satisfied expression on her youthful face. They were dead when he brought me out, she said. All of them. The soldiers, the taskmasters, the lords. Dead. Even Lord Trusting and his obligators. The master has left me, going to investigate where the noises began. On the way out, I saw him lying in his own blood, stab wounds in his chest. The man who saved me threw a torch in the building as we left. This man, Menace said. He has scars on his hands and arms, reaching past the elbows. The girl nodded silently. What kind of demon was that man? One of the scum muttered uncomfortably. Mist Wraith, another whispered, apparently forgetting that Kelsier had gone out during the day. But he did go out into the mist, Menace thought. And how did he accomplish a feat like this? Lord Trusting kept over 24 soldiers. Did Kelsier have a hidden band of rebels, perhaps? Kelsier's words from the night before sounded in his ears. New days are coming. What of us? Tepper asked, terrified. What will happen when the Lord Ruler hears about this? He'll think that we did it. He'll send us to the pits, or maybe order his Koloss to slaughter us outright. Why would that troublemaker do something like this? Doesn't he understand the damage he has done? He understands, Menace said. He warned us, Tepper. He came to stir up trouble. But why? Because he knew that we'd never rebel on our own, so he gave us no choice. Tepper paled. Lord Ruler, Menace thought, I can't do this. I can barely get up in the mornings. I can't save these people. But what other choice was there? Menace turned. Gather everyone, Tepper. We must flee before the word of the disaster reaches the Lord Ruler. Where will we go? The caves to the east, Menace said. Travelers say there are rebel ska hiding in them. Perhaps they will take us in. Tepper paled further. But we'd have to travel for days, spend nights in the mist. We can do that, Menace said, or we can stay here and die. Tepper stood frozen for a moment, and Menace thought the shock of it all might have overwhelmed him. Eventually, however, the younger man scurried off to gather the others as he commanded. Menace sighed, looking up towards the trailing line of smoke, cursing the man Kelsier quietly in his mind. New days, indeed. And that is the end of the prologue.
Okay. So, I got a real out there theory, but only because I've been thinking about this allomancy thing literally the entire time now.
Okay.
I'm gonna go on the thing to say that all of the magic is only going to be metal based, because I feel like all of these people are basically forges.
They're forges, okay.
They put metal in their body and it smelts, and the steam could be the mist, coming off of them kind of idea, because it would look a lot like mist. And maybe all of the mist that's out there is that all of these people are basically forging the shit inside them, and then maybe I'm trying to line it up to being something about Mistborn, like rotating things in my head here. Damn it! I had it before I started talking, and I don't remember it. Go ahead, Darkness. Maybe I'll remember it while you're talking.
I mean, that's a pretty good theory. Like, it makes total sense for like the mist. I like the mist part that you're talking about, where it's just like the fumes from the forge.
Oh, I remember what it was now. Sorry. You can go ahead, Darkness.
No, that's fine. I don't have that much to put in.
Okay, so I don't know how many metals are in the world, but I feel like if I'm curious on if literally you took every metal and ate it and forged it all together, could that create something better, that like maybe a Mist Wraith, whatever that was, maybe that's what they are. Like they eat all the metal and forge all of it together, and it creates one singular metal or something that has like a pure mist. Or maybe that's why it lingers or whatever. I'm kind of confused on why the mist is lingering, but that they would stay out in it for a while. But maybe if like you ate literally every metal that's in existence and forged it all together, maybe then you become a Mist Wraith or a Mistborn, maybe.
Maybe the quality of the metal matters.
Maybe that would be really cool, though.
Are you guys excited for this book?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Can we get a picture of what he looks like?
Of Kelsier?
Yeah, the guy who ate tin and then used it.
Yeah, I can get.
Like,
a
does
picture
he
of
look like a
Kelsier.
forge? Because that would be fucking cool.
Let's get you a picture of Kelsier. Okay, do you want the badass picture, or you want to get a picture that actually gives you a better idea of what he looks like?
Can we not just get both?
I forgot you can do that. Yeah.
Can we not just see both of them? I mean, 'cause I definitely want to see a badass.
I
but-
want the. I want the.
Oh,
Oh,
is this the badass picture?
That's the badass one.
Damn, that man is cool. It doesn't
Another
look like he's a forge.
style.
I want that
Okay,
glove.
got it. And this is the guy who says, "I'm here to stir up trouble." Correct?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, this man looks like he's ready for some trouble. Ooh.
He's
I still want
blonde-haired,
that glove.
blue-eyed. I think that's his main characteristics.
Okay, yeah, this guy looks fucking badass. I can't wait to read the whole book now.
But yeah, this book is a lot more action-packed than Elantris.
Is it more action packed than Warbreaker?
Would I consider it more action-packed? I think it's
It's so.
equal,
Alright, how
if
about
not
this?
more
How about
so.
this?
I think it's
Is-
equal.
is-
No, it's
is-
more. I
is
think it's
Juicy
more
Soul-
action-packed. It's definitely more action-packed than than Warbreaker.
Okay.
You do realize how it starts, and it's just a prologue. Right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like that's that. I mean, but so was the first prologue of Warbreaker was also pretty action packed.
Yes.
Man was breaking into a fucking jail or whatever and stole some dude's power.
Yeah. So Kelsier, I'm pretty sure is not considered a main POV character.
What?
So the main
It's
POV
actually-
character is the heroine from the back of the book. So it's a
What?
female main character. Kelsier is
Is he like fucking?
he's a main
Bastion.
character, but he's not a POV character
So
basically.
he's like because he was a POV character.
So
he's like
I
Nightblood.
believe I haven't read Mistborn in a long time. I think he might have maybe as many POVs as like Vasher did in Warbreaker.
Okay, so he does have POVs though.
I
That's what I'm-
believe he does have
he's like-
some, but it's
so- so
mainly
he's
it's mainly the
Mistborn's
main
version of
character.
Asher. Got it.
Yeah.
That's what I've been saying.
Yeah.
So-
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, because originally she said he has no POVs, and I was like, so he can't be Vasher. But
well, yeah, no,
okay.
I think he has a couple. I don't, as I said, it's been a long time since I've read this book. I don't 100% remember. But this series is one of the few where I believe the majority of the POVs are from one character. So she's basically both, like, if you combined all of, like, Vivenna and Ciri's point of views, and maybe even Lightsong's POVs together, would be the main character, and then, like, Kelsier's, like, Vasher, maybe Lightsong's. Or, like, there might be,
Gotcha.
I don't think there's anyone else's point of views. I think it's mainly just the main character. I guess it doesn't spoil who it is, because it says in the first sentence of the next chapter, but Vin. There's the girl named Vin is the main POV character.
Bin. Okay.
Yes.
So I was looking to try to figure out how to spell Deloff originally, right?
Mm.
So in Google, I put Elantris characters, right?
Mhm.
And it should give you a list of characters, and all of these people are from Elantris except one. So can you tell
Oh,
which
no.
one it is?
Oh no. What have you
I mean, I know
found?
who she is. So it doesn't matter. But
Why the fuck
last-
is the Venna listed as a Elantris character?
I was like, what? Did I
What?
miss
But then
something?
it wasn't even written when Elantris was around.
I was like, did I miss something? Did she show up and I didn't know her?
No, because Warbreaker was written like 4 years or something or more after.
But yeah, I thought that was funny. I was because I was like, I was trying to figure out the spelling of Deloff so I could find Deloff. Like, I wanted to know what he looked like.
Yeah.
You know, and then you see all the pictures I found of him. But and the wonderful memes I found that were funny as fuck. Yeah, I got that afterwards. But
Yeah.
like, he wasn't in this list, but she was, and I was like, why is Vivenna here?
Someone fucked up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you guys excited? It's very... So basically, Mistborn's considered Brandon's darkest series, if you haven't already noticed by the fact that this guy was going to steal someone's daughter to rape her and then kill her.
Oh, okay. So I thought I wasn't 100% sure if it was rape, but yeah,
Yes.
okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, so he was basically going to rape her, and then he has to kill her so she doesn't have half-breed children.
But she got away.
I don't think he ended up raping her. Kelsier got there first.
Oh, okay, good.
He got to her as she was being dragged into the mansion.
Oh
So.
my god, this is hilarious.
Tilap and
This-
Serene.
No, it's not D-Lock.
Oh, that's Harath. No, Harath's taller
Harath?
than her.
But the picture
Yeah.
is the red armor. That's Harathan.
Yeah, Harathan's supposed to be taller than her, though. It says specifically that she looks up at
Yeah.
Harathan.
Yeah, but it's hilarious.
Anyways, we should probably end it here because we've been going for fucking 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
That's fine. We can keep going.
No.
I
Why
gotta
do we need to
go.
stop?
Yeah, I know.
Nah.
So you guys are going to be reading chapters 1 to 4.
What? That's it?
Okay, the chapters in Mistborn are a lot longer than the chapters in Elantris.
I finished that in like an hour.
It's like 60 pages like we've been doing for Elantris, okay?
Okay.
Remember, we
So,
only did 50 for Warbreaker. We'll see how things go, and we might go down
how
back
many?
down to
How
50.
many total chapters in here?
Total chapters, there are 40 something.
Oh, okay.
What's the epilogue? Where was the chapter before?
Oh, four chapters every time would be 10 days or 10 weeks. Okay.
Oh, there's less. There's 38 chapters plus an epilogue. So I think the starting chapters must be a bit shorter. So we're not going to be reading very many chapters per episode. If I
But
scroll,
there's the they're the same page though.
but it's the same page number. Like, yeah, like sometimes we're going to like be reading only like 2 chapters. It's between 2 to 4 chapters per episode. So instead of like between like 5 to 10.
First book
And I think that's also mainly because there's less POV
the first book
characters.
for this is the Final Empire.
Yeah,
Is
so
it?
it's sometimes called just Mistborn, and it's sometimes called Mistborn: The Final Empire.
Yeah, book 1 is the Final Empire.
Okay.
I mean, I just looked at the actual pinned thing. It's the next one we're in, but on my Audible, it actually says Mistborn Book 1. So
Yeah, sometimes, as I said, sometimes it says Mistborn, Mistborn Book 1, or Mistborn: The Final Empire.
yeah,
Because technically the series is called Mistborn, but also the first book's called Mistborn, so a lot of people call it Mistborn: The Final Empire.
yeah.
It's a whole thing.
Okay,
Yeah.
bye.
Bye, guys. We'll
Okay.
talk
Bye.
next Sunday for a lot, not 3.5 hours next time.